What piece of history is deliberately being erased from existence? In WW2, how France people in general were pretty okay and open to Nazi ideals. Under occupation, shipping people to camps, etc. But they pretty much rewrote the history, glorifying the resistance force who were just a little group of individuals resisting Nazi occupation. The Vichy regime. One of the last units defending Berlin was a French SS division. They were probably the most committed German force at that point due to the looming repercussions at home. Yeah, if the Nazis hadn't occupied like 2/3 of France under military rule and had just overthrown the government and put a fascist regime in charge, I think people would be extremely shocked to know how fast France would have enthusiastically joined the Axis powers. Same with the Netherlands. And Frank died because a Dutch person gave her up. But now suddenly researchers says a Jewish Nazi collaborator probably gave her up. Said research has already been debunked by multiple academics, but that doesn't wipe away the huge stain on Dutch history that is WW2. People also like to try and forget the UK handed some Jews over to the Nazis. I don't think this has been erased from existence. There was initially an attempt to do so, but ever since the magnificent film The Sorrow and the Pity by Marcel Ophuls, nobody denies the French role in assisting the Nazi occupiers. Were there any conquered nations that fought the entire time? With all the stuff I've seen on WW2, I've never really looked in the conquered nations' resistances, which couldn't be more interesting. But I believe it was in one of the big WW2 blockbusters, Schindler's List or Inglourious Bastard, they showed a good bit of fighting in Poland. People are making this sound like the French were also happy about it. I don't really think there's room to be judgy until you're a small farming village and tanks roll up. See how you do. In a similar vein, we tend to deliberately ignore how much America loved fascism in general and Hitler in particular. If not for Pearl Harbor, we would have likely remained largely out of the war aside from providing aid to the UK, and they were only opposed to the Nazis because their Nazi-loving king had abdicated the throne and left his saner little brother in charge, because the American people didn't have a problem with anything that was happening in Europe. We even turned away the first boat full of Jewish refugees because we were anti-Semitic as hell too. FDR needed Pearl Harbor to galvanize the country into opposing the Axis powers. When left to their own devices, the American public, despite all the lies we tell ourselves about ourselves, love the idea of authoritarian fascist governments. We don't actually like democracy as much as we tell people we do, and the fact that Trump is polling evenly with Biden is the proof. Scary parallels with the number of people openly supporting Putin today. Serbs desperately try to negate all the atrocities they did all over Bosnia. And in Croatia as well. I've met people from Serbia saying that Eastern Slavonia massacres didn't happen, not even old people, but young people too. As if a few thousand people just vanished into thin air over the course of a few months for literally no reason. You also have people claiming that there were Croatian paramilitary forces in Vukovar killing Serbian children and keeping jars full of their eyes on their cupboards, which is why the unrelenting shelling and subsequent murder of civilians of Vukovar was justified. For a reference, Vukovar, which is essentially the eastern gate to Croatia, suffered the worst pound-for-pound artillery shelling after Stalingrad. Serbian forces targeted the hospital, which was marked with several crosses to indicate that it's a hospital, and had treated wounded Serbian soldiers and civilians amongst others, several triage camps, civilian hideouts, and other non-military targets on purpose. I do not know a single person from the area who hasn't had at least one, and in most cases, several, family member tortured, raped, executed, or all of the above. Myself included. It's all part of Western anti-Serbian propaganda if you ask them. I know very little about this. Thanks for your comment and sorry to hear you have family who shared in the suffering of that time. The Croatian War of Independence page on Wikipedia is surprisingly accurate if you're interested. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.